Hey guys, this is the EU InsurTech and Investment Show, live with Florian Graillot and the 120 million euro man, Tanguy from Descartes Underwriting. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
You're welcome, Robin.
Hi, everybody. Thanks a lot, Tanguy, for being with us today.
Yes, and forgive me for my, very obvious introduction. Congratulations, you just had a mega round, Series B, 120 million. Unbelievable, so thank you very much. But I think it has a special reason that you're able to raise that. Florian, do you want to say 2 words about Descartes Underwriting?
Yeah, let's come back to the figures of last month, and as you will see on the regular chart. So last month there were 153 million euros invested through 13 rounds. The one reason why we are very happy to have Tanguy with us today is that basically Descartes Underwriting was the biggest round announced last month, so a bit more than 100 million euros, let's say, which help, make France the most active local insurtech scene to start the year. So let's see what will happen in the next month. But to start with, France was especially very active, again with LACA in the UK as the second biggest deal, and then Uncle in France again. So thanks a lot, Tanguy, for being with us today. And now we'll speak in more detail about Descartes Underwriting.
Sure. So Descartes is a relatively new company. We were created 3 years ago by ex-AXA, SCOR, and Swiss Re employees. So we are more people coming from the industry and trying to use tech to make insurance much better. We are focused on the corporate insurance market. So our clients are very large corporations, usually multinationals, having subsidiaries across the world. We tend also to focus on natural perils, so climate risks mainly. So typically we cover large companies against floods, cyclones, quakes, droughts, heat waves, cold spells, hailstorms, everything you can imagine in the weather and nat cat space, the natural catastrophe space. Today we're a team of 65 people across various countries. So we have teams in the USA, so in Denver, Houston, New York. We have a team in London. We plan to open also something in Germany. So Robin, be ready. And also in Madrid, in Spain very soon. And in Asia, we have actually 2 offices today, one in Singapore and one in Sydney. But we plan to open Hong Kong by the end of this semester.
And by the way, that's quite funny. You managed to introduce Descartes Underwriting without mentioning parametric insurance. Whereas I believe that, and that's why we are very lucky to have you today, that you are the most quoted example of that, let's say, technology or use case. So first, can you explain how do you see that positioning first, and obviously why again there are let's say so few examples of real use cases, whereas this has been among the most discussed trend for ages.
I think there is probably some confusion about parametric insurance. It's not a line of business or a product. It's just a way to improve insurance products. So basically, if we look at the current pitfalls of traditional insurance products, affordability is a big issue. So when you give 100 to your insurer, you get 70% in return. So the frictional costs, distribution operations, support functions are just too high. So you need to improve the economics. And parametric insurance is a way to make it more affordable. I think transparency is another big topic. As you know, the industry suffered a lot from the pandemic crisis. Some people were disappointed by the fact that actually they thought they were covered and they were not. Yeah. So we need to make sure that we are completely transparent. And parametric insurance is a way to show to clients how much they will get if a certain event occurs. This is something that is completely transparent. And I think the other point is about claim payments. I think the customer experience in insurance, especially for the corporate segment, is very poor. So in the USA, for example, it takes 550 days between the declaration of loss and the claim payment. So it takes more than basically it's usually a year and a half before you get some money from your insurer. So if you manage to pay within 5 working days, you're definitely a hero in the industry. So
yeah,
parametric insurance.
Sorry, it's just almost close to like Amazon experience to receive a payment like 5 million years later. You know.
No, it's not acceptable, and I think that's also one of the main drivers behind the growth of parametric insurance. But again, it's just a means to improve insurance. It's not an end. So people tend to say a lot about, I mean, they want to launch parametric insurance products, but in the end, it's not the right way to do it.
I have a question, but I wanted to jump first to our listeners. I see you watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn. I really can actually see who you are. So please like, share, comment. And even if you don't like the show, you know, if you even think Robin and Florian should never be on air again, please write this in comments, because the algorithm doesn't understand and he thinks you're supporting the show. So please do that. Like, share, comment, hug your phone, give us some kisses. That makes the show go wild around. More and more people are pouring in. That's really, really great. So that's my call to action for the audience. Tanguy, I would ask one more thing. How would you describe parametric insurance to like a 3-year-old, or me?
Well, we just use data to process the claim payments. Yeah. We just need reliable and transparent data, but we don't need to send a loss adjuster on the ground to assess the damage. And it changes a lot how the insurance process is conducted.
Cool.
And by the way, so that's very interesting. You mentioned data, because I believe that one of the most here sentence in insurance, at least since I've been navigating that space, is insurance is all about data. So how could you explain that actually there are, again, only few corporates doing parametric insurance, especially in your case around weather damages, and what's your competitive edge, or how would you explain the success of Descartes Underwriting?
Actually, if we take a step back and look at how underwriting is done within large corporate insurance players, it's mainly about guidelines. So basically, you have a handbook of 700 pages describing what you can do and what you cannot do. But it's not really based on models. It's more based on expertise. And the expertise is extremely precious. It's basically the consequences of years and years of claims. And it's something that gives an advantage to incumbents. But when we consider, for example, natural perils, you can get lots of data from satellites, from sensors, and actually you have a competitive edge if you get more data from external sources than if you just stick with the claims experience you had over the last 50 years, especially because the trend is changing. As you know, climate change is completely changing the patterns of claims for floods, for wildfires, for droughts. So you need to have to use physics and not to use only statistics to be able to model the risk behind. So if you model, for example, wildfires, if you just look at historical data, you will miss the fact that soil moisture, temperature, wind speed will lead to massive wildfires in the Nordics, in Europe, like Norway, Sweden, Finland. It led to massive wildfires in Canada last year. And it will lead to more and more wildfires in Chile, Australia, and such countries. But if you only look at historical data, you will miss the point. You need to use that, but also to use some physics to be able to understand what's happening.
So what you're actually talking about is predicting the future. Predicting future claims is a little bit like predicting the future. And to the two people not loving insurance. We get a lot of people from LinkedIn right now. Super cool that you are there. Thank you very much for being here. It's a multi-billion-dollar skill to be able to predict like a wildfire in Sweden. I mean, it's like massive damages that, I mean, we're saving lives and property, but also from the industry, it's like a big thing there. How would you describe the process right now? And is it already working right now?
So actually, you will not be able to predict accurately what may happen in 3 months, but you will be able to assess a probability of the event to occur. So it will help you to better underwrite. And also, we're talking a lot about underwriting, but when we talk about data, it's also about product design. And being able to access more data sources, more sensors, more satellites is a way to completely change the product offering. If we take wildfires, if you use satellite imagery and artificial intelligence, basically you're able to insure people through satellites. So basically you have a very good granularity. You can actually assess if a tree is burnt or not. You can even assess the salvage ratio much more precisely than with human beings. So using algorithms, machine learning, neural networks will give you an edge to make actually the claims experience much better on top of the underwriting, I would say, optimization that you may have.
We have a question. Sorry, Florian, I know you have also a million questions, but let's maybe go to Tomasz. I hope I pronounced this correctly. Tomasz question, he says, great and interesting topic. So how do you get to the data? That's, I think, the core of his question. Can you get to the data? What about companies that are super secretive about the data? For example, insurance companies. And do you think open data is a thing? Will it not happen? And maybe you can elaborate a little bit on, do you have access to data? What data you don't have access to? And what would you wish you would have access to? And next question goes to Florian. Sorry.
Okay, it's a very complex question, so I would need half an hour to be able to share my opinion on that. But to make it short, it depends on the product that you sell. If we're talking about floods, typically for corporations or earthquake or cyclones, this is public information. So you don't have to access the data from your clients. You don't have to deal with complex GRPD rules. So this is something that is much easier. If we're talking about health insurance or such, I would say, products, it's a different story. But in our case, most of the time, the data we need basically to process the claim payment are sensors that are approved by our partners, or it's public data from satellites. So it's not a big issue.
And related to this data discussion, I think that there is an obvious question about, let's say, the team that you have built. And if we have a look at social networks, LinkedIn, for instance, we see that you have a huge team of data scientists. Is that the major challenge for you to attract this kind of profiles? And is this let's say, one competitive edge because you manage to attract this kind of players, whereas, let's say, incumbents struggle. So long story short, you mentioned data, you mentioned how you access this data, and now you need to leverage them. So a few words about, yes, the people side of that data thing would be huge.
Definitely, you're right. When we talk about tech, we're talking about recruiting data scientists, software engineers, DevOps, and it's a challenge for all startups in Europe or in the world. I think we are quite lucky because we don't need to speak French typically in the company. We speak English, so we have lots of talents from Asia, from Vietnam, from India, from Singapore. We have lots of talent from Africa, from Latam. We have three Mexicans in the team, people from North America. So we're able to attract people from all over the world. Then I think we're able also to be very attractive because we try to innovate in the face of climate change. So we managed to recruit people from very prestigious investment banks like Goldman Sachs because they want to do something against climate change. So the noble purpose is definitely something that is crucial to build a strong company and to attract the best talents you can find in the world.
And by the way, thanks for making the link with the geography. That's something that you mentioned as an introduction, mentioning a few teams across the world. Obviously, climate damages and NatCat have no boundaries, so it makes sense that you are almost everywhere. could you say a few words about first, where are, let's say, your most active places? Is that in Europe? Is that in the US, where you mentioned that the time for claim is a bit huge? Is that in Asia that you referred to? And obviously, if you could share a few words about the next geographies based on your last round, that could be obviously interesting.
Sure. So today we are 50% Europe, 50% rest of the world. So mainly North America and Asia. Asia will keep on growing very fast. As you know, it's the fastest region for insurance right now. But North America is the largest market by far. In the corporate segment, it's almost 50% of the total market. So definitely we will invest a lot in the USA to make sure that we will access also the large US corporations. In terms of,
Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. I always need to say I'm the youngest of three, and if I would have not interrupted my siblings, I would have not talked until my 27th birthday. So I'm sorry for that.
No problem. So definitely we want to be global. Two reasons. First, our clients are multinationals again, so they won't accept us to only be able to cover them in Germany, France, and Italy. They want like a global reach. And second, we need to have a balanced portfolio. It's very important for us not to be overexposed to only one geography, one risk. Because if you want to secure capacity and become a large player in the long run, you need to have a stable loss ratio. So volatility is something that will be a big challenge for many startups. And it's something that we have considered really on day one when we launched Descartes. We wanted to make sure that we will be in a situation where we will have a very sustainable growth. If we were, for example, only focused on fallouts in Germany last year, I think the company would be in a very poor shape. Now, if we have only a few percentages of exposure to fallouts in Germany in 2021, then it's not a concern. So this is something that is also very important for growth in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. One question I have, I probably should have asked it at the beginning, but who are your clients? Are you looking for insurers to provide your data and your services, or is it explicit non-insurers?
No, we act as an MGA today. So basically, we underwrite on behalf of large insurers and reinsurers. So we work with brokers. In the corporate segment, brokers have 100% of the distribution channel. And our end clients are large corporations across many sectors. So we may insure renewable energy players, we may insure telcos, we may insure large agricultural cooperatives, plenty of sectors.
I have to apologize because I was an insurance sales agent, but I just insured private people, so I never went to the high court of corporate insurance. The biggest corporation I insured was a restaurant. So sorry for that. Fun question. You put so much energy and money into underwriting better to do parametric insurance. Do you have an advantage of that? I mean, do you have deals with the people who actually have the coverage that, we deliver you better clients and with less damages, or how does that work?
So basically, we think that underwriting is, I would say, the foundations to start an insurtech company, because you need to be able to offer, I would say, a profitable portfolio to your reinsurers or insurers. Otherwise, at some point in time, you will be stopped in your growth plan. So this is something that is quite crucial. And a way, again, to avoid fraud and avoid many, I would say, pitfalls in the insurance space is to go for a parametric approach. But for us, we don't want we want also to have the ability to give back much more to our clients. So we want to maintain a relatively low loss ratio to be able to offer, I would say, more in return. So the expense ratio will be low compared to other players, and we will select the risks that we think are probably overpriced by competitors to make sure that we can offer a discount compared to the market. So we will definitely be very competitive in terms of price.
I mean, if you deliver a portfolio that's super profitable for everybody, you're, the CSO's best friend of everybody at your insurance partner company. Totally get that.
But if your risk is good, it should be unfair to price like, for example, Florian, who may have like a very bad risk. So I think it's also a principle of fairness. And I know that we talk a lot about mutualization in insurance. In our case, it's true that we tend to demutualize.
Yeah.
We will definitely penalize the bad risks, but we'll make sure that the good risks will have a reward and have a very competitive price.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and basically what is interesting in what you say is that you have basically two challenges. One on one hand, getting insurance capacity, let's say, to carry the risk, and on the other hand, distribution, which you have already answered before we raised the question, by the way, which is basically you are distributing through existing networks of brokers and agents, which I believe helps you accelerate on sales more. On the capacity side, maybe a question, because last time we had the CEO of envelope risk on another risk, cybersecurity. Nevertheless, it's what we label as a new risk. They mentioned that they were, let's say, exploring a way maybe to have their own capacity. Long story short, are you exploring this kind of move up into the value chain, being a full stack, or is that, let's say, unfair to make the link between cybersecurity and weather parametric?
I think we have plenty of capacity to grow in the next years, so it's not a concern to us. I think cyber is definitely something that is a hot potato for insurers and reinsurers today. They try to sell cyber for many years without success. Now there is a high take-up rate, but the loss ratio is increasing a lot. And for some insurers and reinsurers, they think that it's a systemic risk. So basically, it's like a pandemic. You can have like an event happening in Germany, France, the USA, Spain, Italy, that could have a huge impact on their P&L. Whereas in our case, we are working on many different periods, many different geographies. We are actually covering more than 30 geographies in our portfolio and more than 20 different types of perils. So we are again much more balanced, and there is no systemic risk with Descartes. So that's something that is very crucial for us also to be able to keep on growing. Then I think your point is also on becoming a full stack player. And I think for us, it's not something we are looking for, but we think that we should probably inject more technology, more tech across all links of the value chain. We see that we can improve policy issuing. We see that we can improve claim handling, reinsurance, everything. So this is something that is on the table, but more because our clients are expecting a better service, a better price. But it's not because we want to become a full stack player without any reasons.
That was, by the way, a mean question, to ask in public. What, do you want to become a full stack? But since you ask a mean question, Florian, and if Tanguy goes away now in our show and leaves angry, we can just say it's technical and we have 20 minutes already. Normally we're really nice to our guests, we have to say, but since he had a mean question, I have one too. When I'm listening to what your technology provides, how you use a parametric insurance to select risk and have all this technology in place, I would ask if I would be an old school insurer right now, I would think about, damn, when they're doing such a good job, can we actually, use their tech too? Is white labeling something you do or you're thinking about? Again, Florian had a mean question. I wanted to ask one too.
No, definitely. We have plenty of partnerships and we want to be loyal to our partners. This is something that is very important in the insurance industry. Yeah. Then, of course, I would say the climate change challenge is so big that we will need more and more capacity. Yeah. If we look at, for example, the latest data points in 2021 about claims, the uninsured claims are growing faster than the insured claims. It means that even if the insurance sector is growing, the pace is slower compared to climate change and the frequency of weather anomalies. So we definitely need to improve the way insurance is offered to companies, individuals, SMEs, and make sure that there will be enough capital to absorb the impact of climate change. And I think we are very far from reaching that goal worldwide with all the existing insurers and no-insurers. So the asset managers will definitely pour more capital in the market. But for me, it's a challenge that goes beyond Descartes or beyond the corporate insurance market. It's one of the key challenges for insurers. It's how to be able to absorb the shock of climate change. So again, we had a number of examples in the past. One in Germany recently with the massive floods, so in Germany and Belgium, but also with massive wildfires in California and Oregon. So we need to find a way to pour more capital to basically create a buffer for the economy and for basically insurers and no-insurers. So for me, it's we won't be able to fix climate change and its impact just by ourselves. Unfortunately, we have to be reasonable in that respect. So more capacity, more partnerships will be something that will be anyway, I think, quite important in the next 5 years.
Yeah, and by the way, you mentioned insurance company, reinsurance company. I'm not sure if you can mention the name of this kind of carrier with whom you're working, but anyway, there is a pattern that we see in the insurtech scene where insurtech are increasingly working directly with reinsurance company. As you mentioned, data. Let's say intuitively, I believe that maybe it might be easiest for you to work directly with a reinsurance company. Is that the case? There is no pattern, meaning you can work with insurance and reinsurance company. Again, based on what you have done so far, is there any pattern here? Do you find it easiest to work with one or the other? Is that equal?
I think in the corporate segment, the frontier between insurance and reinsurance is blurred. So basically, you have plenty of insurers doing reinsurance and some reinsurers doing insurance. So actually, the frontier is much clearer for the retail lines. That being said, it's true that our partners have a great appetite for data and models. That's a way for them to feel safe about how we can grow the book in a profitable manner while better serving our clients. This is something that is quite key.
It sounds a little bit like the magic combination. Another magic combination, my dear guests, I'm not talking about people you can see, but the people listening right now around the world, you're pouring in at the end of the show more and more. I am urging you to actually listen to the replay of this show, because at the beginning we had some secrets we were able to steal from Tanguy. And that's the reason, looking at the watch, we need to say, well, last question. The last question we ask every of our guests is, you now shared really something interesting insights into parametric insurance, about your future plans, and you were even so kind to stay, even though we had 2 mean questions for you. What is the insurtech community listening can do for you?
As you know, for all startups, recruiting the best talents is definitely quite crucial. So happy to exchange with all the potential candidates that would be interested by Descartes. Then I think, as I said, that the climate change challenge is huge. So we need definitely to pour more capital to make sure that we will be able to absorb the consequences of climate change. So I think more insurance capacity in the long term will be required for all players and across all markets. So I think that would be the 2 takeaways on my end.
Thank you very much. Cool. Florian, any last words?
No. I think it was really clear. And thanks, Tanguy, for taking the time with us today. Again, I believe that parametric has been a hot topic for years. Now we have insights on how it is working for real. So obviously, Tanguy, thanks a lot, and wish you the best for the next step and the geographic scale that you detailed with us.
And thank you very much, everybody in the audience who asked questions. We couldn't take everybody, but Tomasz, Raul, Emmanuel, Marguerite on LinkedIn and all you others on other platforms. Thank you very much for everything. See you at least next month when we again say it's time for the EU InsurTech and Investment Show. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Bye. Bye.